Okay. Rolling. Quiet in the studio. Well, hello there. This is Jonathan Starkey, a.k.a. Ab Fab, your delicious, delightful, delovely. Of course, I'm waiting for the comment there. Shut up or I'll mute you. Digital pub landlord of that fabulous digital pub called Cheshire Matters. And on the show tonight, we have the depressed Stats. Say hello in a very depressed way, Stats.
Hello.
Is that right?
All right, okay.
Hello, listeners.
You need to take those tablets. Those Galaxy tablets.
Can I just say that Statsman looks a little bit different tonight because he's wearing a rather sort of interesting zip-up top. It looks as though he's a pensioner heading off to Les Arca's bingo at Rill.
You'll find I've got 3 lions on my top.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's not looking right to me.
Well, there you go. Say hello. Well, we know he's in. We know the Raven is in. So let's say hello, the Gazelle.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our podcast.
Indeed. Go on, Raven. You're looking left out.
I'm always left out, but it doesn't bother me. I've broad shoulders. On a rather sad week, the city of Chester and wider communities and the country as a whole, I'd just like to wish everybody good evening.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Well, let's go straight into the roundup. And on a healthy note, we have to say that the patient's health minister is actually stated in the latest row. Are you listening to this? That
Yes. Well,
basically the health service is warned not to put ideology ahead of patients by health minister. Latest row over gender policies. How about that? Health Minister Will Quince said LGBTQ plus Alphabet Mafia charity Stonewall should not be allowed to write sensitive strategies for the NHS organisations. And this is after an investigation by the Daily Mail. Go ahead, Steve.
I just want to add something which the timing of this article is rather interesting because let's face it, the NHS should primarily be focused upon providing healthcare, not engaging in political ideology or allowing external groups to do that. Now, given what we are going to talk about a little bit later on, I think it's time that the NHS got back to its fundamentals and made sure that certain things do happen and certain things don't, instead of engaging and wasting time and money on all this.
Indeed. Go ahead, Trev.
yeah, they just waste time. They're managers. That's what they do, Steve. They're managers. You've got to get rid of them out of the NHS and get back to the old system.
Indeed.
No, I'm not old, but the old system does work. Thank you.
Well, and on another positive note, sorry, go ahead, Stats. What were you going to say?
I was going to say put Stonewall on a prescribed list or something with all the neo-Nazis and all them divvies.
Yeah.
Why not? You stick anyone else on for all kinds of reasons. So.
Get rid.
Not going to listen to, what's his name? Quince.
Yeah.
Oh, he's just going to be another minister who gets ignored.
Yeah.
Isn't he?
That sounds like a something like, I don't know, what is it?
You're thinking about that television series, Quincy.
No, I'm thinking about something you've caught, Quince. That sounds like a disease. He's
No, quinine. It's the answer to malaria.
All right, well, never been there.
You're not very with it at the moment.
Malaria.
Yeah,
could be the answer to Stonewall. It's a bit like malaria, isn't it?
Yes. Okay, and another positive note on health. Right, patients with cancer symptoms could skip the GP, says Steve Barclay, Secretary of State for Health.
Yeah.
So they could skip the GP and just go for the scan. No, that's
who's going to put you forward for the scan?
Well, apparently, if you've already been through and you're waiting to go for a scan, you don't have to go back to the GP. You just go straight through. Doesn't the GP refer you for a scan? Well, I don't know.
Then you go for your scan. So then
let's go for the detail. There is no detail there. So there you go.
Brilliant.
Coronation.
That's sorted,
Okay. Coronation Street star reveals she is now working as a nail technician after leaving the cobbles. Nail technician. I thought all you did was just hammer them in. All the women in the country.
Who is this? This will keep me awake all night. Not knowing.
Georgia May Foote has revealed her very normal job as a nail technician after quitting the cobbles in 2015.
I don't know who it is. So
well, she was best known for her role as Katie Armstrong on the ITV soap. And she's launched her own business. Hold on.
The term star isn't really rocking my boat here.
Excuse me.
That's it. Muted. I'm going to finish the sentence. Shut up. Okay.
Let's go to the next story.
She's best known for her role as Katie Armstrong on the ITV soap. And she's launched her own business, GMF Nails, in the beauty world. She still works in acting and voiceover work, according to her social media, but she first qualified as a nail technician in 2021. So how about that? Go on.
She's not on OnlyFans. Thought that's where they all go.
Well, she is nice. She was Katie Armstrong in the ITV soap. She launched her own business. She was, I can't remember the name of the guy that she was with. She was one of the stalwarts.
Have you lost the plot this
You still watch that?
What are we talking about here?
I don't watch it.
Fell asleep.
I don't watch it.
I'm listening to this with interest because I've watched this since I was a baby and I've never missed an episode. In fact, I've even got my own soap opera, Coronation Street.
Coronation Street, yeah. Okay. Which country am I talking about now? Are you ready? Go ahead.
Sounds a bit Russian to me, that.
It is. It is.
That, yeah.
I should have gone Russian. There you go. All right. Nobody's going to get the joke. Russian general who was in charge of Ukrainian invasion until he was purged by Putin is now dead.
Did he fall out of a hospital?
Hospital window.
A leading Russian general.
A lot over there.
Who was kicked out of his job. He's been found dead. I wonder how. Colonel General Gennady Zhiko, 58, died after a lengthy illness on August the 16th, according to Russian online news outlet Redovka.
Were there any umbrellas involved?
I have no idea. Go ahead,
He looked
Mark.
like the Ready Breck man.
You know what? I can't work that
Was
one
he glowing?
out. Glowing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was glowing soon.
And that comment after a lengthy illness, I've never heard that one before.
No,
It's
not coming from Russia, no.
No.
I mean, you normally hear about people sort of falling off, the ledge.
That's right, yeah.
Or drowning in 3 inches of water. All these unsuspected accidents, Anyway, what about this one? Okay. Experts claim many more Knights Templar graves could be hidden around England as a historian uncovers 8 burials in Staffordshire. Knights Templar.
Yeah, I read that with interest. Yeah.
We need a few of those today, I can tell you. He said he made the Da Vinci Code style revelation at St. Mary's Church in the village of Engle, west of Birmingham. He thinks the graves can be identified as belonging to Knights Templar members due to the appearances of the clan's symbols on the headstones. Yeah, go ahead, Trevor.
I'm a bit concerned again over this. Where would we be these days? Would we have the Knights Templar absolutely riding in on that horse with a big rainbow flag?
Nope, it would never happen. Never in a million years. Okay?
Bring them back.
About that.
Bring them back.
Well, the thing is, it may just happen due to what's going on in these days. We need a secret society like that to come in and usurp all these people.
Should we start one? Should we launch it tonight on our public podcast?
Yes, the Cheshire Matters Templars Club.
Very secret, though, is it?
Well,
we just let everybody know
that straight away, Steve.
I want to be a Templar. Okay, you're in. Let's go. Pay your £5 entrance fee. You are in. You are now a Templar. Oh, thanks.
And I'm going to get the coconuts.
Mayor's website says white family photo doesn't represent Londoners.
Oh, just been looking at that.
It's Sadiq.
Oh,
He's got a point now, hasn't he?
I've seen this. This is I'm telling you
The
now.
first time in his life, he's probably right about something.
Yeah, but the irony
Should've
is,
laughed.
if people were pointing out if it had been the other way around and people commenting the other way around, it would have been received different, which is true.
Isn't that going against the minority in London now? So
Isn't it racist as well?
It is.
maybe the minority doesn't have any rights now.
It's okay for him to be racist, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
You know, that's okay. Sadistic Khan. That's what we'll start to call him. Okay.
I've called him a few other things, but
The King of Londonistan. What do you reckon? All
Well,
right.
they're on about him resigning, aren't they? But is that going to happen?
I don't think so.
no.
Do you think?
Why would he do that? I mean, at the moment, all he's doing is he's appealing to his voters. That's all he's doing. He's appealing to his voters, to his main voting class, and that's it. And he's just getting them all in. Yes, lads, you know, we're racist.
Because there's an election coming up next 2024
Indeed.
in May.
Yep. And he needs all the votes he can get after the hated ULEZ introduction.
Let's see if he gets voted in. How interesting is this going to be?
Okay. Right, well, let's have a little bit of a laugh to end off that before we move into more serious subjects. A story. Trans species man who self-identifies as a deer was accidentally shot by a hunter.
Okay, trans species
man
is a
who
deer.
self-identified as a deer. I mean, you want to see the picture? I mean, it really does look like a deer on two legs.
You've shown me this. It's a bloke wearing one of those furry suits.
That's right.
Is he not grown up or what?
Well, he wanted to be a deer.
Well, he's not. He's a man, so tough.
Well,
Get over it.
And he was wandering around on the
On the
edge
woods,
of a forest
in the
and he
woods,
got
and-
shot.
yeah, and he got shot.
Do you know, I wanted to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, but it didn't quite happen, so maybe I was 20 years too early. Damn.
Do you remember that when Peter Kay did that joke? He said, "What have you come as?" He said, "I come as a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle." He says, "And I brought my girlfriend." He says, "Your girlfriend?" On my back. He said, "What? Your girlfriend? What's her name?" He said, "Michelle."
You know, I was just going to do one about the deer then, and I thought, I'm not wasting my time after that.
Dear, 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 dear.
You'll never
Well,
beat that one.
I've got to say, kudos for the hunters for accepting him for who he was. He's a
Totally agree with
deer.
that.
I'm just wondering whether anybody like sort of stripped him and ate him afterwards. Venison.
And what was his name? What was his name? Was it Venison?
The song. I don't know. I can't think of a name for a man who's trying to impersonate a deer.
His name was John. So when you write to him, it's Dear John.
Oh, Steve threw it in.
Oh,
Steve
that
threw
was.
it in.
Yeah, don't do that again, Steve.
Well, it's clearly everything is wasted on you two tonight. You're not even awake.
I tell you what, the American audience will be thinking, "What the hell? What the did he just say? What was that? What did he mean by that?" Going to finish that off now, and we're going to move on to a very, very serious subject. And
Sadly.
I'm going to start off by giving an introduction to it, which is sad. Very, very sad. And it's about a young lady, 33 years old, Lucy Letby. She's been sentenced to a whole life jail term after murdering 7 babies. Now, the reason why it's of particular interest to us is because Chester is just literally a few miles away. And it's also Steve's hometown. So let me just set the scene about what's happened here. She's now termed the worst female serial killer that has ever been. And a whole life sentence for the killing of these kids in hospital is, I think there's only been 3 or 4 women that have ever had that attributed to them after being found out and taken to court. So she refused to leave the court cells as the parents of her newborn victims described the horrifying impact of her crimes. One bereaved mother called Letby's absence one final act of wickedness. A father, sobbing, said the murder of his 2 identical triplet sons had torn his family apart, leaving him suicidal and ruining their trust in medical professionals. It has destroyed me as a man and as a father, he said. Now, that's as Letby, 33, became only the 3rd woman alive to be handed a whole life jail term, as she was sentenced for murdering 7 babies and trying to kill another 6. Okay, so I'll give way. Go ahead, Steve.
First of all, being a Chester resident, and obviously everybody has read this right across the country, and beyond, this will have made headlines around the world, no doubt. And I think the first thing I would like to say, and I'm sure we would all agree, is that...
say it on behalf of all of us. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, our thoughts clearly go to the families who've lost their babies, their children, and there were other families who had their children injured in various ways, and they survived. So I think the first and foremost point, which is very important, that we show our support to the families. Sorry, I didn't get that over very well, and because to be quite honest, it's highly disturbing. And the reason is this: as everybody will be mulling over all aspects of this, these people went to hospital, and in the care of the hospital, some of them lost their babies there due to this appalling woman and what she did. And I find it incredulous, to be quite honest with you. I think it's very hard to digest.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing I would like to say, I've got a number of points throughout tonight I feel are quite important to say, actually. And I'll come back to those later. But I just want to give sincere condolences and our support and best wishes to the families. And I hope they get support going forward. I really don't know what to say to them, in all honesty, in terms of... I think the whole city and the country is speechless, to be honest.
Let's just give an idea of exactly what this woman did. She was described by the judge as cruel, calculated, and she basically enacted a cynical campaign of child murder involving the smallest and most vulnerable of children. There's got to be malevolence and sadism running through somebody who does that. But anyway... she fatally injected 7 babies with air, tried to kill 2 others by lacing their feeding bags with insulin, and attempted to murder 1 by thrusting a nasogastric tube down his throat. What kind of a woman would do that to a baby?
Well, not only that, Jonathan, we have somebody in a position of high trust.
Correct.
In a hospital, entrusted by the public and the profession to administer care to people in the hospital, in this case, babies.
Yeah.
Now, to take the life of anybody is bad. Defenseless babies, that's something else.
Oh, it's just heinous.
It's evil on another level altogether, to be quite honest. Now, no doubt we're going to come to a number of issues surrounding what's gone on, but because this is an issue which is going to affect the NHS as a whole, in terms of how it operates and protections that it has in place.
Well, it's seen as a place of trust, somewhere you would go for help.
Well, you mentioned a key word there, which is trust.
Yeah.
And without going into too much semantics, we've discussed the issue of trust in many aspects of our public services and the way our country is run over the past few years.
Yeah.
This, very sadly, is an appalling example of how trust
can be
misused in the most appalling manner.
Yeah.
I think that's why it took so long to actually discover it was her doing it.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of the management probably just could not comprehend that was possible, because we all take children to these. This is our local hospital.
Yeah.
So our own children have been there, and you do not think for 1 minute when they whip your baby off to do whatever after it's born, that things like this can happen. It is unbelievable, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
It was a clever guy who actually helped catch her. I was listening to him before being interviewed on something. And he had to go through all the deaths of all the babies, find out which were legitimate, which weren't suspect. And then he found about 15 that were.
Right.
And then it was to find the trail, who was on duty, and it was her every time.
Yeah, to get the common denominator.
I know a lot of the evidence is circumstantial, but it's just... what else could it have been,
Well, trying to get into the mind of somebody like that is very, very difficult. I wouldn't have liked to have been the investigating officers going through and then discovering, because there's possibly more babies that might have been affected. I mean, some of the babies have got such debilitating illnesses now that she's left them with. They've been left with life-changing disabilities. One girl, she's 7 years old now, is blind and has been diagnosed with a quadriplegic cerebral palsy. She is nil by mouth and requires major spinal surgery.
That's absolutely awful.
Yeah. I'm lost for words trying to articulate it, these things. But go ahead, Trevor.
Mr. Landlord, you made a comment earlier on, or you worded a statement that it was the medical professionals. It's not the medical professionals that missed it. It's the managers. And I just want to say that there's a more worrying undercurrent here. How many times have I personally mentioned this on this podcast, time and time again? The fact that these managers were ignoring the warnings.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about targets. It's all about money. It's gross what these managers are earning. This is not a policy of envy. This is not. These are facts. These managers are earning probably a lot more than a consultant.
Well, they're on 160,000 and
well, there they are. I mean, well, that's not the point I'm making. The fact is that this could have gone on for more years.
Indeed.
With these managers. Consultants raised concerns. Babies could have been saved if they'd have been listened to.
Yeah.
Will they be held accountable? No. They might get fired off, but they'll be put into another trust. These managers, they're all, I'm sorry, but they're all friends of friends of friends of friends.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that the hospital managers, some people are calling for corporate manslaughter against them.
Well, let's hope it happens.
Well, if they do, they're setting a precedent. Okay, and I'll give way momentarily to you, Raven. But a chap called Dr. Stephen Brary was the lead consultant on the neonatal unit where serial killer Letby worked and raised the alarm in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And he was speaking to BBC Radio 4's Today programme, and there was no apparent accountability for what NHS managers do in trusts. None whatsoever. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you very much. You've just hit a couple of key points yourself and Trevor there. First of all, the accountability issue. All of us, as Trevor said, we've sort of touched on this in various aspects of public life over the past few years, and there doesn't appear to be any. And I'm sorry, but it's time for a review. I'm going to come to a very important point here because Trevor is likely to be right, sadly, and I hope it isn't. I hope there is a call for a full investigation, and I'm going to come to a big point on this in a minute, which is this. So bear with me. I'll be very quick, but I need to say this. There is a lack of accountability, and what concerns me is the fact that it appears at this stage there has been numerous attempts by people to raise the alarm bells and report concerns over a substantial period of time. But this issue of people reporting serious matters and going unheard and being brushed off is now the endemic culture in this country.
Yeah, they become the problem.
Yes.
That's it. That's the point I was coming to. Because anybody in any area of life now who seeks to do the right thing and raise legitimate concerns for the wider good of other people and public interest is either ignored, ridiculed, or vilified. And the consequences can be massive, no more massive than this appalling situation. So,
yeah, well, this has happened because she managed to get away with it. They even forced the doctors who were actually raising the concerns to apologise to Letby because they were more concerned about reputational damage for the NHS. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, totally agree with you. It's a failure of the system. It's wokeism.
Yep.
It's wokeism. It's a failure of the system that these managers that were raising concerns had to apologise. No, it's wrong. The whole system is failing.
it is.
Well, I actually put on our behalf a comment on Twitter, and it was commenting on Letby, and I said, and this has gone up now to nearly 22,000 views. I said, due to fear of social, legal, public, and political repercussions, both personal and collective, systems and processes in the UK tend to protect rather than detect criminality. The criminals know this and utilise it at every opportunity. Go ahead, Mark.
Correct.
See, the problem here is we've been, as you say, talking about accountability now for, 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
And now this is where we finally end up when there isn't any.
Yeah.
I just wish we were wrong sometimes. The funny thing is, well, it's not funny, but what one of the managers, I think, apparently was said they would take responsibility if she was wrong and another baby died, and then either that day or the next day, one died. So I think it's about time to follow that through, don't you?
Well, yeah.
I think they should be held accountable. I think one's off in France now, retiring, says they're going to help in any way they can. Help in any way they can.
Yep.
I think they missed the opportunity to help back then.
Yeah.
Well, there were
whatever.
3 of them involved, wasn't there?
It's just so sad. It doesn't matter what punishment was given. It's never going to be enough for these families.
No, and it never can be enough. I mean, to lose your children like that. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah.
I did notice, actually, that very shortly after the verdict of guilty, the Member of Parliament for Chester, Samantha Dixon, was calling for a public inquiry. Now,
It's a public inquiry, but it's not a statutory inquiry. So that means that they have no legal right to force people to come in.
That's right. Now, there are problems with this, and I've got 2 points to make on it. And the first one might be a little bit controversial because this is merely my opinion. I thought the timing of that and the expediency with which she called for a public inquiry was a little bit daunting, and perhaps, in my view, potentially opportunistic.
Yeah.
I think, to be quite honest with you, to come in that early, immediately, more or less, after a guilty verdict, without further things coming to light, is perhaps not the best route, as you've described, and the reasons for.
She should be forcing a statutory inquiry.
That's right. But also, going back to what Trevor said, I'll give way in a moment, Trevor. Going back to what you said earlier about accountability and what you said earlier, Jonathan, about somebody calling for potential manslaughter prosecutions of management.
They're now former employees. We're talking about a man called Tony Chambers and Ian Harvey.
These people should be investigated. The system of what's gone on there should be investigated further by the police. And if people have failed to act on reportings, then considerations, in my view, should be given to formal prosecutions of potential corporate manslaughter.
Indeed. Especially for something as serious as this. There were 3 of them, and I'm going to mention them again. The Chief Executive, Tony Chambers, Medical Director, Ian Harvey, and Alison Kelly, who was the Senior Manager in charge of nursing at the time at the Countess of Chester. And they're saying that she's being investigated, and at the moment, she's been suspended from her new job. I mean, these people just go through a revolving door. And how do you actually say to yourself, why would you want to actually employ these people? Why would you want to employ these people if they've been responsible for something like that before? Go ahead, Mark.
Do you know, if I was them, I think I would rather be wrong by falsely accusing someone of killing babies and suspending them and sacking them or what have you, than being wrong and allowing more to die. I think the decision on that's simple. If you've got experts saying, look, something's not right, you need to get in there straight away. You know, if she was innocent, then you could have cleared the name and gone, look, it was a big mistake, but this is babies' lives at stake here. But apparently they wanted to, you know, give her a promotion and shuffle her off to a different hospital.
Alder Hay.
What, sorry?
Alder Hay.
I'm sorry, but this...
Alder Hay Children's Hospital.
Exactly. So what was the reasoning behind that? Why would you even consider that? Surely you would just make the decision, look, we're going to have to... She's suspended. She's not working here until we find out exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand a lot of them, like I said earlier, just probably couldn't comprehend someone was actually doing this. But there's always this little chance, and you have to be so careful with things like this.
Yeah. And actually, I'd rather the balance tipped in that way, and they were actually put out of a job and then proved innocent.
Because this is a mess.
This is a mess. Also, there is other things. The race baiters that are joining in on it. You know, Dr. Shola? You know, the black woman who is always continuously putting out anti-white things. She turned around and she said, Lucy Letby exemplifies how ideology of whiteness keeps Britain in a chokehold. They believed her tears and her denials, even though evidence said otherwise, for no other reason than she's white. A black or brown nurse would have been reported to the police immediately and sacked for suspicion. Now,
that is total garbage, and Trev's right, because some of the people who accused her were white, and some of the people who believed they were white. So it's got nothing to do with skin colour, and I'm sick of these people.
Well, I turned round and I said, any broadcaster or newspaper that gives you the oxygen of publicity should be boycotted. This isn't about you or race. This is about innocent children who lost their lives to a deranged individual who was allowed, through poor systems and processes and weak leadership, to kill and kill again. Absolutely no compassion for the parents. Your first comments were all about race. Never mind colour. You are a total and utter disgrace to the human race for your comments in this instance, and we sincerely hope that God and all God-fearing people disown and isolate you. And it got a lot of likes.
Yeah, they're the real people who need cancelling. Do you know what? It's a way for them to be relevant, and this is just really not the time for that.
No. Quite right.
And let's put it right down at their front door. It's the managers.
Yep.
Nobody else. It's not the medical staff. They were the ones reporting it. It's the managers.
The managers. That woman, Alison Kelly, who was the head of nursing at the time, she was accused in court of failing to act when doctors raised serious concerns about the nurse during her tenure as Director of Nursing and Quality at the Countess of Chester Hospital, where Letby murdered 7 babies. And now, Miss Kelly, as I said before, she's now a Director of Nursing at Northern Care Alliance NHS Trust in Manchester.
Oh, yeah, they moved out. Yeah, of course they are. They moved out.
And local politicians called for her position to be investigated by ministers. You know, they were defending this woman. Now, as Mark said, you have to see the flip side. You know, Lucy Letby was a really, really good liar. Go ahead, Mark.
I believe she was. There's a guy on YouTube who actually went down to all of her when she was being grilled by the prosecution. And he, on the way down there, he said, yeah, in my mind, she's guilty. He said when he got there, though, and she was talking, he started to kind of change his mind a bit and think if they made a mistake here. But she was emotionless. And then cracks started to appear. And she started getting a few things wrong.
Yeah.
And then it became apparent that she was a bit of a liar, actually. And on the final day of questioning, they just showed everything she'd been doing in her private life while all this was going on. So while she said no one was speaking to her and she couldn't speak to people and she was in the house and all this, she was out getting drunk and going out with work colleagues and stuff. So they proved on the last day that she was a liar.
Plus the diaries.
Yeah. And I think one of the major things that got her was, I think it was a few days after she was told not to come into work. I think she'd gone back into work, but she'd filled out some kind of form to say there was a deficiency with one of the bungs on the syringe that might let air in. So she was already setting the scene and the scenario for what she was going to be accused of in the future. That's very telling.
Well, the one thing that gets me about the whole thing, because of the system and because of the things that were happening, the executives only launched a formal investigation in July 2016. Although Letby was then removed from the unit, the police were not contacted until May 2017. I mean, why would you leave it that long? Why?
Sorry,
Why?
Jonathan,
Because they're covering all their tracks up. That's what they're doing. They're covering all the tracks. They're making excuses.
Correct.
So they'll get fired off, and they'll get put into another system, into another trust, where they earn another £200,000.
Well,
Jonathan, can you just
I'll
go through those again?
Okay,
please? I think it's quite
timeline.
important for the public.
The woman, Alison Kelly, she was contacted in February 2016 by Dr. Breary, we mentioned it before, who, part of a review, found common links in the deaths stretching back to the mid-2015. But the executives only launched the formal investigation in July 2016. So that gave them a whole year to work out all their scenarios. Yep. And although...
February 16 to...
February 2016, they were contacted, by Dr. Breary, and they launched a formal investigation in July 2016. Okay, so February to July, but they were told about these things going on in 2015, and then they did not contact the police until May 2017. Which gives them all that time to sort out every scenario, how it's going to affect them, what the fallout is going to be with all the parents and all the rest of the stuff. And I'm sorry, but that's wrong.
Commonly known as damage limitation.
Correct. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, you can pull out a mean tweet and they're banging on your door within an hour.
Yeah.
So not only have we got cancel culture, but what we've all been missing is cover-up culture. And this probably gives us an indication of why we don't get any accountability. Because certain people are covering up certain things. But why?
It's the mentality at that level in systems and processes and the mentality in this country.
My question is it done purposefully? Or is it real bad mistakes? Because if they're bad mistakes, who the hell have we got in these positions of responsibility?
No, either way, Mark, if the bad mistakes or it's deliberate, they shouldn't be in the jobs.
Exactly. It's got to be one of the two.
They have to be competent.
If it's a mistake, it's a real bad one, and these are children, and these are people who should really be better than this. And if it's done deliberately, then why? Was there other people in on this then or something? Are we missing something bigger?
Yeah, it's a big agenda. There's always an agenda. If there's something where it questions your mind, think, hold on a minute, that's common sense, you wouldn't do that, then there is an agenda.
My big question is, after maybe the second or third baby, wasn't everybody thinking that this is not right, this never happens?
Yeah.
Why did it take a specialist to come in with the police to investigate all the deaths to find out which were legitimate deaths and which weren't? Why did that take so long? Come on, the hospital could have done this.
Some of those whistleblowers, it was intimated to them that basically they're not doing themselves any good by coming forward like this.
Surely after a couple of babies who had air inside them, wouldn't they have post-mortems and that would become apparent quite quickly?
Well, it's a difficult one, that one, because it's a way of people murdering other people without anybody showing any real outward signs.
I know, but the specialist guy came in and saw the legitimate ones, which were infections and things like that had killed the babies.
Yep.
But then there was the other ones that didn't. Now, why couldn't someone in the hospital have done this sooner? What did he do? Just a baby dies and they go, oh, well, is that it?
Jonathan, did you say that the people who were trying to raise awareness about this were being told this wouldn't do them any good?
Correct.
They had to apologise to us, dude.
Here we go. This absolutely confirms, doesn't it, that people, as we said earlier, who raise legitimate issues in this country are viewed as a problem, and things are put to them in various ways that what you're doing isn't perhaps the best idea, when in fact they're doing what's right. And as we've said many times on this programme, people doing what is right in this country now can make people unpopular for doing so. Look at the consequences. It's appallingly sad that the consequences can be as bad as this.
Oh, they're just looking for a way out. Go ahead, Mark.
too many people approaching pensions and don't want to rock the boat.
Well,
Perhaps.
£1 million pension pots.
We've just got a lack of people willing to put the head above and call out things,
If they prove,
haven't we? Cowards.
if they prove that criminal activity has taken place, those people could lose those pensions.
Do you know, I'd rather lose a pension and falsely accuse someone than lose children.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they
Sorry,
don't.
but-
They don't.
No, they don't. No, they don't. That's the problem.
don't.
It's greed.
They don't.
There's something going on. There's got to be something else to this, because I would have thought everyone would have been on board of, right, well, just let's try and stop this. Let's suspend it. Let's figure this out quickly. Not let's.
What's frightening here, Matt? What's frightening? Sorry, this is only one that's been caught.
Yeah, I know.
This is only one that's been caught.
Yeah.
And we know this system is broke.
Yeah, absolutely.
This system is failed.
Yeah.
It's not failing. It's failed. It's broken. It's broken.
This is a massive, massive discovery of a cancer, that has metastasized from symptoms that everybody knew about.
How many more of these are we going to get in the future?
Yep.
Again, they're dealing with the symptoms. They didn't deal with the actual problem.
Correct.
And it continued.
Exactly.
Now, in my opinion, it's going to be a big job. But I think we've got to go through every hospital and check every child death going back so many years and make sure this hasn't been going on in other places with other people.
Yeah, quite
because
right.
if it was that easy for it to do, how do we know someone hasn't done that?
Exactly.
Agreed.
Or she hasn't done it more.
Unless anybody's got any more comments to make on this, there are so many things that have got to be done. We are so sad about what's happened. So sad. And we feel so much for the parents here. And we're going to give a few final words. And I'm going to go to Steve first, and then I'm going to go to Stats. Go ahead. Go, Steve.
I just want to reiterate our thoughts with the families of those people who have lost babies and those
God
families who have also had
us.
their children severely affected. And I don't really know what we can say, really, to be honest with you, other than wish them well, and we hope that they get an awful lot of support. There are no words, really, to be quite frank, other than the fact that their lives have been dramatically affected. Their lives have been changed
Forever.
in the most unprecedented way.
And even in this situation, time is not a great healer. It's not a great healer.
No.
Not when it comes to losing your child. Because no parent wants to lose their child. No parent. They want the children to outlive the parent.
Yes.
I'm very upset at that. Go ahead, Stats.
I think I'd like the media now to stop these distractions of should she have attended a sentencing and why did she do it and all this, because you're never going to know why she did it unless she comes out and says, whether she was there or not. I think listening to some of the defence bad stuff, it's probably irrelevant, really. She's in jail for the rest of life. I'd like them to more concentrate on what we've been talking about and this cover-up culture and this no accountability, because look where it's gotten us now. I mean, some weeks we just talk and it's just a council or it's an MP or something, but look how serious this has gotten now.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to send out my deepest sympathies to everyone affected by this, because it brings a tear to my eye. Like.
Yeah, it does. It does. Trevor, final comment?
Yeah, I don't want to comment on this. It's personal to me, so I'm not going to comment on it.
Understood. Well, I feel that there should be more than just a code of conduct. There should be something more. And I don't know, it's so sad. But anyway. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to call it there. Steve, on this occasion, we're not going to the bar. We're just going to leave it at that. And we're going to say good nights. Here we go. Well, sorry that's a little bit sad, but that is just the way things happen. And we hope that all those parents, we hope that they actually find some form of closure over what happens now. Go ahead, Mark. Say goodnight.
Good night. And good night to our lovely listeners.
Indeed. Steve?
Best wishes to the city of Cheshire under very dark circumstances.
Indeed. Trevor?
Totally agree. And our thoughts are with all the parents that have had a bereavement. God bless.
Well, there we go. That's a toughie, that one, I have to say.
Yeah.
I find it...
You're going to get these, aren't you, occasionally?
Yeah, so distressing, I have to say.